If you turn up and you're the finished product, they're going to try and break you, or if they turn you up and you do things slightly differently but get the same outcome, they'll challenge you on that in that way. And I think that's a way of getting you into the way that service life is, and understanding that you're going through a course. And that's where the term, which I don't like the term, but that's where the term "it's just a game" comes from.
Yeah, but you can break and remote people by, could phase people, you can do sleep deprivation, you could do different things. Why do you think they say, I want everyone, walk into the North Airfield with this, full kit list? You know what I mean? What I'm trying to think, what's the relevance for, the RAF or militarization?
I think firstly from an RAF point of view, I think it's what's been signed off from a training responsibility, the TRA, the Training Responsible Authority, that they will deploy with that. So I think it comes from not from a student-centred point of view, it comes from an organisational-centred point of view. It comes from this, in order for you to do this, you need to do that, and this is how you will do it. And it's that conveyor belt that you get onto and that type of thing. And that's what I mean about the involvement of training. We had Portaloos. Let's be realistic about it. We still have Portaloos. Now the involvement of trainers, we don't need people digging in holes in the wood blocks to do what needs to be done. When I was at Dartmouth, that's what we did. So for me, that's quite psychologically quite a big change. Yeah. That there is a big change in that. Why don't we need people to do that? There's probably a ton of environmental health, ground, unnecessary stuff, because the reality is out on ops. From an Air Force point of view, you're going to pretty much have a toilet block, aren't you, when you're in Camp Bastion or something like that? You're never going to need to dig in too much. So for me...
going a bit on a tangent, that's the...
What I mean is that's the it's a slight tangent, but that's the psychology of the change. It just takes a long time for it to come in.
Yeah, no, but I mean, me going on a tangent in the sense that the same way that you're saying that in an RAF you'll have a toilet, do you think in the RAF you'll mobilise, and I'm talking again, the IoT, so you have pilots, you have engineers, you have adminers, do you think people will mobilise with a Bergen and tab in to a location?
No.
Then why do you think...
Because what they're doing at that point is you're agnostic. You're not a pilot. You're not an admin. You're not a J-Rock. You're an agnostic. You are being trained.
An airman first.
You're an airman. Well, I don't think you are an airman first. I think that's a big issue for the Air Force. Hence why Sandhurst has a 44-week course versus 24 weeks and 30 weeks that the Navy do. The difference is you're not an airman first in the Air Force. But we've always been. So the Air Force has always been. It's specialists. For me, the difference very much between the three of them, but the one that enhances the most, and in my view is probably most open to change in a relative spectrum, direct entry sergeants, Air Force. Only the Navy have just recently started doing direct entry leading hands for specialist medical branches, so corporals, that type of thing. And that's that change. So that's why. The point I make is that the Air Force aren't airmen first; they're technical trades first. Almost technical trades under one huge umbrella is the way that I see the Air Force.
Considering that in the course, as we just said, you had future pilots, engineers. There's also male and female guys and women in their 30s and in their teens still. How do you think that practice impacted the course, good and bad, as in on CPT and on CPT on first step, having people marching with those, huge Bergens?
So, it's a really good example that move in to Fob Lizard, or wherever it was at Barkston Heath. The move into that fob is a really, really good example for me of where people necessarily see themselves, because you see people struggling with what is day-to-day stuff of picking up that bag and moving in. And the difference based upon the age grade and variations for me of IoT, and yes, you'll get certain things that give people strengths and weaknesses, but for me one of the frustrations was that I believe, and I know, because it was fed back to me that I had a strong CPT. And that actually really gave me confidence to come to J-Rock and think, yeah, I can actually at least start to learn. I can solder a little bit. I know what that looks like. However, the academic phase, by understanding what the academic phase of Cranwell wanted from me in the way that they wanted it, for me has always been something where I look back at it and think, Cranwell is set up for a younger person to be in challenge and stretch in things that are required through life, not just kind of passing exams. So as an example of that, I believe that Cranwell, and I'm coming from a trainer point of view when I say this, Al, so a professional, a pedagogy, so the pedagogical underpinnings of training and understanding it. I believe Cranwell is so tick box in that academic phase that we're breeding officers to tick those boxes, and then the physical stuff is just you just got to get through that. Whereas actually people's greatest leadership opportunities are in things like dragging Beth Stones through getting her through the tab, or picking Mark up off the floor, or naturally being a bit of a leader in that environment, not getting 53% on air power studies and we've done it. Do you see what I mean? So there's quite a lot for me around the variety of IoT, which in all the assessments that they do, which is the organisation checking you off and saying you've achieved the minimum rather than you've excelled.
Yeah, I suppose my question is, again, with the Bergen thing on First Step and on CPT, do you think would you say that it was beneficial because it made people stronger, made people realize that they can do it, and it simulated a deployment? Or do you think it was more detrimental because you might have hurt a few people and you might have, fatigued them without a learning? How do you see as in, you know what I mean?
I think it's one step further back from that, Al. For me, I think it comes from Cranwell. The issue of IoT is that they don't create a learning environment. So therefore you do not know what is the point of what we're doing. That's the point that I was trying to make just before. You don't understand why you're doing this tab. You might need to tab into Camp Bastion if you are a forward air controller in air traffic control. In the worst case scenario, we might have to march out of if we are overrun, and you might need to take that bag out of it. Completing the tab into Barkston Heath, is that a learning outcome? But does that learning outcome have the same weight that passing your Bandar has?
I see.
And as a result of that, that's what I mean by the institution breeding people who know exactly what it is and what they need to do in order to pass.
Okay.
So it's the difference. Sorry, to finish that point, it's the difference between turn up, serve your time, rite of passage, versus learning experience and applying things on IoT into where you're going to go into in the Air Force.
A different angle then. Do you think if you could write, that part of the training thing, do you think that should be maintained, or do you think that should change? As in, do you think that term 1 and some term 2, yes, I do want the guys to load up and tab in and stuff like that, or do you think would you change it, or do you think that's needs to be maintained?
Having done 2 commissioning courses in my life, I do believe we need militarisation still. However, irrespective of whether I think it was soft in inverted commas or not, however, I think it needs to be more applicable to the role that people have applied to join the Air Force for.